Welcome to our channel, where we explore the legends and untold stories of Japan's mysterious yokai, the supernatural beings, woven into the heart of Japanese folklore. Yokai are far more than creatures of fear. They were born from our ancestors' awe of nature, and from the subtle stirrings of the human heart, the crystallization of an ancient imagination, and a reflection of the Japanese soul itself. Within these stories lie the quiet thoughts and feelings of the people who shaped Japan's culture and traditions. By coming to know them, you too will come to know Japan more deeply than ever before. Now, let us begin today's journey into the world of yokai.
Yokai of Japan, Episode 1. Yuki-Onna, the Snow Woman. On a moonlit, indigo night, she appears in silence upon the snow. She is called Yuki-Onna. From the snow country of Tohoku, through Hokuriku and Shinetsu, this female yokai has been told of for centuries. She appears only on nights of snowstorm, before travelers lost in the mountains, or those who walk the lonely paths far from any village. In different regions, she has been known by many names: Yuki-Joro, Yuki-Musume, Yuki-Oni, Shigama-Nyobo. All of them are spirits of a woman, born from the snow itself. On a snow-swept mountain path, you happen to look ahead, and there, in white robes, a woman stands silently. This is how Yuki-Onna appears before travelers. She is most often described as a young, beautiful woman of about 20. Skin so pale it seems translucent. Long, jet black hair flowing down her back. Clothed in pure white robes, her feet said to dissolve into the snow itself. What is feared most of all is her breath. Those upon whom she breathes her frozen breath are said to freeze to death in an instant. In some regions, it is told that she drains the life force from her victims, or even drinks their blood. There is also the legend of the Yuki-Joro, who offers a baby to a traveler in the storm, and turns to ice anyone who takes the child into their arms. The most famous Yuki-Onna story known to the world comes from Lafcadio Hearn, known in Japan as Koizumi Yakumo, a writer who became a Japanese citizen during the Meiji era. It appears in his celebrated collection, Huaidan. A young woodcutter, sheltering with his old master in a mountain hut on a snowstorm night, sees a woman in white robes appear without a sound. She breathes her frozen breath upon the sleeping master, and takes his life. She makes the young man swear never to speak of that night, and then she vanishes. Years later, the man marries a beautiful woman, raises children, and lives in quiet happiness. But one snowy evening, he carelessly speaks to his wife of that long-ago night. And his wife was none other than the Yuki-Onna herself. The form of Yuki-Onna varies greatly from one region to another. In Aomori, there are tales of her marrying a human man and bearing his children. In Niigata, gentler Yuki-Onna are remembered, who help travelers in distress. Yuki-Onna is not merely a monster. She is what the people of Japan's snow country found within winter itself, a symbol of both fear and quiet tenderness.
Yokai of Japan, Episode 2, Tamamo-no-Mae, the Nine-Tailed Fox Woman. In the imperial capital of ancient Japan, there once lived a woman of unearthly beauty. She captivated even the emperor himself. And in the end, she came to take his very life. The time was the late Heian era. Before the retired Emperor Toba, a court lady appeared one day. Her name was Tamamo-no-Mae. No one knew where she had come from. Skin so pale it seemed translucent. A mind learned in every art and every classic. A faint luminous glow seemed to emanate from her body, as though she were an incarnation of the Buddha himself, or so it is told. The emperor's affection grew deeper by the day, and Tamamo-no-Mae rose to the very heights of the imperial court. But from around that same time, the emperor began, slowly, to weaken. The more nights he spent at her side, the more something unseen seemed to be drawn out of him. His face grew pale, his voice grew faint. Day by day, he wasted away. And the people of the court, at last, began to wonder. Beside this woman, the emperor was failing. Could she be a being of this world at all? A matter touching the very life of the emperor. The court summoned the great Onmyoji, the master of yin and yang. Amabie no Yasunari. Through the power of his arts, Yasunari laid bare her true form. She was a Kyubi no Kitsune, a nine-tailed fox, a creature that had crossed from far Tenjiku, ancient India, then through the Tang lands of China, and at last had come to the islands of Japan, a white-faced, golden-furred spirit fox, Hakumen Kinmo, the fox of 9 tails. The moment her true form was revealed, Tamamo-no-Mae vanished from the court. She fled eastward into the wild plains of Nasu. No, the imperial court at once dispatched an army, led by Kazusa no Sukaritsuna and Miura no Suke Yoshizumi. On the plains of Nasu, at last, the 9-tailed fox was struck down. And yet the slain fox, through the force of her resentment, had transformed into a vast and poisonous stone. Within the stone, faintly, the face of Tamamo-no-Mae remained, as though sealed inside it forever. The stone breathed forth poison without ceasing. Every person, every creature that drew near it was killed, and so the people came to call it the Seki, the killing stone. Years passed, 2 centuries. In the year 1385, a renowned monk, Geno Osho, brought down a single thunderous blow upon the stone, filled with sacred power. The stone split into 3 pieces, flew far across the land, and only one remained. There, in Nasu, that stone still rests today, in Tochigi Prefecture, in the town of Nasu, just behind the Nasu Onsen Shrine. In place called Sai no Kawara, the riverbed of souls, the stone lies. Even now, it is a designated national place of scenic beauty, the Seki, the killing stone. Just nearby, you will find a hot spring with 1300 years of history. Shika no Yu, the spring of the deer. Should you ever travel to Nasu, you might soak in those ancient waters, and afterwards, walk to see the killing stone for yourself. And then, in March of 2022, the killing stone was suddenly found, split clean in 2. A seal of 900 years broken open. That is what some have whispered. Tamamo-no-Mae. Perhaps she is not, after all, merely a legend. Yokai of Japan, Episode 3, Shuten-Doji, the Demon King. This is the Demon King who once made the imperial capital tremble. 6 meters tall, 5 horns rising from his head, crimson skin, hair like flame, eyes that burned with light, in his great hand, a sake cup brimming full. Deep within the mountains of Tanba, in his palace upon Mount O-e, he reigned as the king of all demons. The middle of the Heian era, strange events were unfolding in the imperial capital, night after night. Noble young women of the court were vanishing. While the courtiers watched in helpless horror, each lady was lifted up into the night sky, drawn upward by a vast demon hand reaching down from above. Those who were taken never returned. In time, the number of vanished noble women rose into the dozens. The emperor commanded the great Onmyoji, the master of yin and yang, Abe no Seimei, to divine the cause of these abductions. And Seimei gave his answer. To the northwest of the capital, in the land of Tanba, upon a mountain called Mount Oi, there dwells a demon, and this is his doing. At the very summit of Mount Oi, a magnificent palace had been built. This was no mere demon's lair. Shuten-Doji had named himself king, gathered demons under his command, and built for himself a kingdom. Enthroned at the top of a great staircase, Shuten-Doji was vast. The demons crouched at the foot of the steps below him. Blue, green, yellow, purple, and others of his kind, were not even 1/3 his size. At his side stood his second in command, Ibaraki, Doji, and around them, his loyal retainers, Hoshikuma, Doji, Torakuma, Doji, Kinkuma, Doji. The captured noble women were brought to this hall, forced to pour sake into the demon's cups. And it is said that some of them became the demon king's own meal. The emperor, to destroy this demon, called upon the great hero of the age, Minamoto no Yorimitsu. Yorimitsu took with him the 4 generals known as the Shiteno, the 4 heavenly kings. Watanabe no Suna, Sakata no Kentoki, Yuzui no Sadamitsu, Urabi no Suatake, 5 men in all. Together they set out for Mount Oet. They knew they could never win by attacking the demon's gate's head on. So they disguised themselves as Yamabushi, mountain ascetics, pretending to be lost wanderers seeking shelter, and they came to knock at the gate of Shuten-Doji's palace. Above the gate, towering over them, a demon gatekeeper looked down with suspicion. The wooden plaque overhead read, Mount O. The lantern beside it bore the name, the House of Shuten-Doji. At Yorimitsu's belt hung a small gourd, filled with sacred sake granted to him by the gods. the Jinben Kadoku, Shuto the gods. This sake was sweet nectar, but to demons, it was poison itself. The demons, though they were uneasy, welcomed the strangers as honored guests into their banquet hall. In the midst of the feast, Yorimitsu poured the sacred sake into Shuten-Doji's cup, in secret. And the demon king, knowing nothing, drank it down to the last drop. And then, when Shuten-Doji had collapsed in drunken sleep, his true demon form revealed for all to see, Yorimitsu and his men struck the legendary blade, Dojigiri Yasutsuna, in Yorimitsu's hands. With one mighty stroke, it severed the demon king's head from his body. And yet the demon king did not die quietly. The severed head leapt into the air, and with an awful towering rage, it flew at Yorimitsu's helmet, and sank its fangs deep into the iron. A demon walks no crooked path. These, it is said, were the demon king's final words. Even a demon, he meant, holds to the path of honor. But you men, you defeated me by trickery in a cup of sake. Yorimitsu, however, had worn 2 iron helmets, one inside the other, and by this alone, his life was barely spared. The 4 heavenly kings, in turn, fought the lesser demons to their end. And so, at last, the demon kingdom of Mount O was destroyed. Mount O still stands today in modern Japan, in Kyoto Prefecture, north of the city of Fukuyama, deep within the rugged mountains that lead toward the Tango Peninsula. At the foot of the mountain stands a museum, called the Japan Oni Exchange Museum. It gathers and preserves every piece of demon lore in Japan, and the legendary blade, Dojigiri Yasutsuna, the very sword that severed the demon king's head. This sword still exists. It is kept, even now, at the Tokyo National Museum, one of the Tenkagoken, the 5 greatest swords under heaven. And it is designated as a national treasure of Japan. Even after 1,000 years, around this blade, the spirit of Shuten-Doji may yet linger faintly. In the air, the demon king who reigned in the darkness of the Heian era. His story is no mere legend. The mountain, the sword, both have crossed 1,000 years and remain in our world even now. Yokai of Japan. Episode 4. Kappa across rivers and ponds. Throughout Japan, this water spirit has been said to dwell since ancient times. Green skin, a shallow dish on top of its head, a hard shell on its back, and a beak. Such is the most common image of the Kappa. But the appearance of the Kappa, its nature, and its mischief, have been told in remarkably different ways from one region of Japan to another. Today, from the rich body of Kappa folklore preserved across the land, we will share several of the most striking tales. The first is known as Kappa Komahiki, the Kappa's failed attempt to drag a horse into the river. This story has been told across nearly all of Japan. A moonlit night, by the riverbank, a horse had come down to drink at the water's edge. The Kappa, hidden beneath the surface, extended its long arm and seized the reins. It meant to pull the horse down into the depths of the river. But the horse was not as fragile as the Kappa had imagined. Startled, it reared up on its hind legs and bolted with all its strength toward the dry land. It was the Kappa who was dragged, bracing its webbed feet against the ground, water spilling from the dish atop its head. The Kappa was hauled from the river in undignified panic. This story, in which a Kappa fails in its attempt to seize a horse, is told in countless versions from the far north to the far south of Japan. Even today, the second comes from the mountains of Oita, in the southern island of Kyushu. Kappa Zumo. Kappa Sumo one summer night. A village man was walking along a path beside the river, when a small child appeared before him. "Let us wrestle," the child said. "It is only a child," the man thought. He agreed to humor the boy, but once they had locked arms, the man could not break free. Until the dawn came, he could not pull away. And here's the strangest part of the tale. To anyone watching from afar, only the man could be seen. The man appeared to be wrestling, alone, with empty air. By morning, he was pale and weakened. He fell into fever. And in some versions of this tale, the man's life was eventually lost. This was the mark of one possessed by a Kappa. In the villages of old Japan, this affliction was known as Kappatsuki, Kappa possession, and it was deeply, deeply feared. The third tale concerns a strange secret hidden in the Kappa's body itself. The Kappa is a mischievous creature. On the verandas by the river, in the privies in the dark of night, in the shadows of a sleeping chamber, it stretches its long, elastic arms, reaching for the women of the household. One night, a samurai noticed this mischief. He drew the blade at his hip. The sword cut clean through the Kappa's arm, severing it at the shoulder, and in that very same instant, the arm on the other side of its body was sucked back into the Kappa's torso. Like a tube being drawn inside out, the two arms of the Kappa, within its body, were connected as one. Lose one arm, and the other will follow. This is the strange anatomical secret that runs through the Kappa folklore of Japan. That very night, the Kappa with its severed arm came before the samurai, bowing low to the wooden floor. "I beg you," it said. "Please return my arm to me. Without it, I cannot live." The samurai considered this for a moment. Then he answered, "Then teach me the secret of your medicine." Through its tears, the Kappa offered up a scroll. Written upon it was the recipe for honetsugi, yaku, the bone, mending salve, a secret formula for healing fractured bones and torn flesh. The medicine that the samurai received that night became the secret remedy of his family, passed down through generations, healing the wounds of the people for centuries. Even today, across Japan, there remain old families who quietly preserve the legend of the medicine taught to us by a Kappa. Among all the Kappa folklore of Japan, the story most widely known to the world comes from the small town of Tono in Iwate Prefecture. In the year 1910, the folklorist Yanagita Kunio gathered 119 tales from the elderly storytellers of Tono. He compiled them into a single volume. That volume was called Tono Monogatari, The Legends of Tono, the book that became the foundation of Japanese folklore studies. A timeless masterwork, behind the temple of Jokin-ji in Tono, along a small stream called Ashiarai Gawa, there is a quiet pool that is still known as Kappa Buchi. The Kappa pool, on the bank. Bamboo fishing rods are kept ready. Tie a fresh cucumber to the line as bait, and any visitor may try their hand at fishing for a Kappa. The Tono City Tourism Association even issues an official Kappa capture permit. The Kappa is no mere legend. 1,000 years have passed, and still, perhaps from the dark waters of some quiet pool in Japan, something is watching us. Quietly. Yokai of Japan, Episode 5, Zashiki-Warashi. A small spirit said to dwell in the old houses of Tohoku, and especially in the prefecture of Oiwa. A child of about 5 or 6 years old, with an okappa bobbed haircut, and a kimono of red flowers, the spirit sits quietly in the inner chamber at night, small hands folded upon its knees, gazing at us in silence. This is the Zashiki-Warashi, but this is no ordinary yokai. The household where this child dwells will prosper. The household it abandons will, without exception, fall to ruin. A small god who governs both fortune and downfall. Such is the Zashiki-Warashi. The home where the Zashiki-Warashi resides is blessed with a strange and abundant prosperity. The rice fields never run dry, and the heads of grain hang heavy. The storehouses fill with bales of rice, year after year. The workers smile without weariness. And in the courtyard, the unburdened laughter of children rings out. The villagers would whisper of such a household. In that house, they would say, there lives a Zashiki-Warashi. A small upper window of the house. In the shadow of the paper screen, the silhouette of a small child stands quietly watching. Neither the master of the house, nor any of the servants, could ever see this figure. Only a strange warmth filled every room of the home, and that warmth alone made known the spirit is presence. The Zashiki-Warashi cannot be seen by everyone. Only the young children of the household are able to see the spirit. On a moonlit night in the inner chamber, children spin a wooden top, absorbed in games of ohajiki glass beads and otadama. And among them, sometimes there is an unfamiliar child, a girl with okappa hair, wearing a red kimono, laughing and playing, exactly like the others. But the mother carrying a tray of tea through the open shoji screen cannot see this child. What appears to the children as a circle of 4 appears to the mother as only 3. The Zashiki-Warashi shows itself only to innocent souls. Or so it has been said. But there came a night. The master and his wife, half awake in the small hours, stepped into the corridor and found the gate of their house inexplicably standing wide open. Standing there was the girl in the red kimono, a small bundle wrapped in cloth held in her hand. Without looking back, she walked slowly into the moonlight, about to step beyond the gate. Wait. Where are you going? The wife reached out without thinking. But the child did not turn, she only answered, "I am no longer here. I am moving on to another home." What those words truly meant, the husband and wife came to understand before that very night was over. The Zashiki-Warashi had departed from the house, and the lore of Tohoku speaks of what follows. The household the spirit abandons will, without fail, decline, the fields wither, the business collapses and the family falls, one by one, to illness. Then, on a certain night, a fire is set upon the house. By whose hand it is set, or whether by no hand at all, the storytellers of Tohoku would whisper. It is the spirit is final farewell. The husband and wife knelt before the family altar, hands pressed together and prayed, and in that very moment, through the half-open shoji of the burning house, the girl in the red kimono was peeking out watching them, as if smiling, as if quietly saying goodbye. The Zashiki-Warashi, a household god of both fortune and ruin. Perhaps the people of old Japan saw within this child the unseen, dreadful power of a family's destiny. In the modern town of Ninyohi, in Iwate Prefecture, lies the hot spring of Kintaichi Onsen. There stands a small inn called Ryokufuso. Its history goes back nearly 600 years, and in the inner chamber of this inn, the room called Enju-no-Ma, the Zashiki-Warashi is said to appear. Even now, the spirit's name is Kamamaro. 600 years ago, during the wars of the northern and southern courts, a young boy of a samurai family fell ill in this place, and ended his short life of only 6 years. With his last breath, the boy made a vow: "I will protect this house for all generations to come." But, in October of 2009, this very inn, Ryokufuso, was struck by a sudden fire. The main building burned to the ground. And yet, a single small shrine in the courtyard, the Kamamaro Shrine, where the boy is enshrined, stood right beside the source of the fire, and miraculously escaped the flames untouched. The boy protected the house. So some have said, Ryokufuso was rebuilt, and it is said that even today, Kamamaro still watches over the inner chamber. And the Zashiki-Warashi does not dwell only in the chambers of Iwate, the deepest rooms of an old house, the shadows of an empty corridor, the hour of night when no one in the family stirs. If in such a moment you hear small footsteps from down the hall, if a sliding door that should not move, softly clicks against its frame, then perhaps in your own home too, a small visitor has quietly come to call. Yokai of Japan, Episode 6, Rokurokubi. In the dead of night, you awaken. By your pillow, your wife sits in silence, and her neck slowly, silently is stretching upward. Thin, pale, drifting through the air like a serpent. This is the Rokurokubi. There are two kinds of Rokurokubi spoken of in Japanese lore. One whose neck stretches to impossible lengths, and one whose head detaches entirely from the body, flying free through the night. By day, they live among us, as husband, as wife, as one's own child. But when night falls deep, their true nature is revealed. The age of the Muromachi, a samurai of the Kikuchi clan in Kyushu, Isugai Haitazaman Taketsura, served his lord with great valor. But when his lord's house fell, he shaved his head, took the robes of a Buddhist monk, and renamed himself Karyu. He set out to wander the provinces. One evening, Karyu lost his way deep in the mountains of Kai province. The day was failing, the cold pierced his skin, and then he saw it a small hut with warm light spilling from its door. Inside lived a humble woodcutter, his wife, and their family. 5 souls in all, quiet folk of the mountains. The husband and wife welcomed Karyu warmly. They shared with him a simple meal and prepared a bed for the night. "Honored monk, please rest with us tonight." Karyu was deeply grateful. He offered a quiet sutra in thanks, and lay down to sleep. In the depth of night, Karyu opened his eyes. The light of the Anden lantern flickered in the darkness. He peered through the open shoji into the next room, and held his breath. There, sitting upright on the bedding, were 5 bodies. 5 bodies of the family, with no heads. The headless bodies sat or lay in the proper postures of sleep, dressed in their plain kimono, but above each shoulder, where a head should be, there was only empty air. And on each neck stump a faint, pale ring of red, drawn around the throat like a thread. Karyu understood. This was the Hitubin, the flying head demon of the ancient Chinese chronicles. In Japan they were called by another name, Rokurokubi. Silently, Karyu slipped out of the hut and into the forest behind. From the darkness of the trees, he heard a sound, a soft, whispering laughter. He drew closer, and in the moonlight, beneath the trees, he saw them. 5 heads drifting through the air, floating from branch to branch, snatching insects from the leaves, whispering and laughing among themselves. The dance of the dead performed in the quiet of the forest, and then the master's head spoke. That traveling monk, he is plump, well-fed. If we devoured him together, our bellies would surely be full. Karyu trembled, and then he remembered. In the ancient Chinese book, the Shuten-Doji, it was written, if a Rokurokubi's body is moved to another place while the head is gone, the head can never return, and the spirit will perish. Karyu made his decision. The blood of the warrior, the blood he had carried as Taksura, awakened once more beneath the robes of the monk. Above him, in the moonlit sky, the heads were already turning. They had sensed him. Their long necks of pale spirit, light trailed behind them like ribbons in the wind. Karyu rushed back to the hut. He lifted the master's headless body easily upon his shoulder and threw it out the window into the darkness. In the forest, the 5 heads sensed it. They cried out in fury and burst through the trees toward the hut. Through the dark, the pale heads flew at Karyu, teeth bared, eyes wild, howling like beasts, but the warrior's blood was awake. Karyu tore a young sapling from the earth and wielded it as a weapon. He swept the heads aside with terrible force. 4 of the heads fled screaming into the depths of the forest, but the master's head, refusing to retreat, flew at Karyu with its final strength and sank its teeth deep into the left sleeve of his robe. The head bit down with all the rage of the dying, and then it went still. The eastern sky had begun to pale. The power of such creatures lasts only in the darkness of night. Karyu traveled on, with the head of the Rokurokubi still clamped to his sleeve. Eventually, he reached the town of Suwa, in Shinano province. The townspeople, seeing a monk walking with a severed head, were horrified. He was arrested, charged with murder, but the magistrate examined the head, and on its neck, he found the faint red ring, the unmistakable mark of one not human. Karyu's tale was deemed true. He was set free with honors. Karyu carried the head back to the mountains of Kai, to the place where the Rokurokubi had lived. There, he buried the head, and offered prayers for the spirit is repose, that burial mound. They say it remains, even now, hidden somewhere in the mountains of Kai, known to those who know it as the Rokurokubi. No Suka, the mound of the severed head. In 1904, the writer Lafcadio Hearn, who had given his heart to Japan, recorded this very tale in his English collection of Japanese ghost stories, Kwaidan. Even now, the Rokurokubi still dwell in the old houses of Japan's mountain provinces, in the shadowed corners of forgotten rooms. If, on some quiet night, you should awaken from your sleep, and by your pillow you should see, drifting upward through the dark, a long white neck, stretching slowly toward the ceiling, then perhaps you too have at last met one. Face to Face. Yokai of Japan, Episode 7, Kurama-Tengu. A red face, a long prominent nose on his head, a small black token cap of the mountain ascetics, robes of a yamabushi, behind his shoulders, great black wings, and in his hand, a sacred fan of feathers, the Hochiwa. This is the Dai Tengu, Sojobo of Mount Kurama. The Tengu are the spirits of the deep mountains of Japan, mountain gods of the Shugendo ascetic tradition, masters of martial arts beyond the reach of human skill. And this Tengu of Kurama bestowed his teachings upon a single boy, who would become the most famous hero in all of Japanese history. The boy's name was Ushiwakamaru. In time, he would become known as Minamoto no Yoshitsune. The year was 1160, the Eiji Rebellion. In that war, Ushiwakamaru's father, Minamoto no Yoshitomo, was defeated and killed by the Taira clan. Ushiwakamaru himself was not yet 1 year old. His mother, Tokiwa Gazan, surrendered herself to the conquering Lord Taira, no Kiyomori, in exchange for the lives of her children. In the year 1166, when Ushiwakamaru was 7 years old, he was sent to the sacred mountain of Kurama, north of the imperial capital of Kyoto, to Kurama-Dera, the temple in the mountains, far from his mother, forever. Before the great Nyaman gate, the small boy turned back to look at his mother one last time. She covered her face with the long sleeve of her 12-layered robes. Both of them knew. This was their final farewell. In the temple, in the lodge called Tokuboin, Ushiwakamaru lived as a young monk. By day, the strict practice of Buddhism. But deep within his heart, something burned that would not be extinguished. The vow to destroy the Taira clan who had killed his father. When he was 9 years old, the truth of his birth was whispered to him. From that night onward, in secret, the boy began to walk into the mountain after dark. Deep in Mount Kurama lies a hidden valley, Sojo Gatani, the valley of the great Tengu master. A place far from any human settlement, a place buried in towering cedar groves where even at noon the light fails. The mountain ascetics called this place Mei-shu, the demon place. When the sun sinks behind the western ridge, ghostly creatures cry out among the trees. So says the Jiki, the medieval chronicle of Yoshitsune. To this place, night after night, the boy made his way, drinking from the mountain spring to catch his breath, climbing the treacherous path of cedar roots that spread across the rock like the scales of a dragon, guided only by moonlight. But the boy did not walk alone. In the canopy of the cedar trees above, among the branches and along the trunks, the yellow eyes of birds watching, many eyes silently following his every step. The boy did not notice. The mountain spirits set their silent trials before him. Who is this child? Is he worthy to be drawn into the deep heart of Kurama? The valley of Sojo at deep night. Cherry blossoms drifted slowly through the moonlit air. Waiting for the boy were figures dressed in black ascetic robes with the heads of crows, the Karasu-Tengu, the crow-headed servants of the mountain ascetics. You have come, Shinao. In the moonlight, beneath the cherry blossoms, the Karasu-Tengu raised wooden swords and tested the boy in the way of the blade. And in the depths of the clearing, beyond the dancing combat, beneath the full moon there stood another presence. A great figure, arms folded across his chest, watching in silence, motionless. A red face, a white flowing beard, wings of jet black. The lord of Mount Kurama, the Daitengu Sojobo. The boy did not yet know he was being watched. But with every stroke of the wooden sword, with every leap and every fall, the great Tengu's eyes were nodding, quiet, deep, patient. At first, the boy was beaten without mercy, but night after night his body grew lighter. He leapt over the entangled roots and rocks. He flew from branch to branch as if the mountain itself bore him up. This is no longer the skill of a human child, so whispered the Karasu-Tengu among themselves, and the eyes of the great master, watching from the depths at last, on a certain night, came to a single conclusion. That very night, before the sacred standing stone, in the deepest sanctuary of Sojo, Gatani at last, the great figure moved. The red face, the long nose, the Yamabushi robes, the wings of jet black. With the full moon shining behind him, he stood upon the sacred stone, and at last spoke directly to the boy, Sojobo, the lord of Mount Kurama himself. Ushiwaka, you have endured the trials of my servants. Well, now I myself shall teach you the secret art of war. The great Tengu unrolled a single ancient scroll, and held it forth to the boy. Inscribed upon it were the secret teachings, the Iho, the strategy of war, by which the Taira clan could be utterly destroyed, the art of the impossible. To run, to leap, to strike where the enemy never expects. The boy fell to his knees, with trembling hands he received the scroll. The Karasu-Tengu around him bowed low, witnesses to the moment. For 7 years, night after night, the boy returned to this valley. He trained. Then in the year 1174, at the age of 16, the time came to leave Kurama. When Yoshitsune left the mountain, his skill was no longer the skill of any mortal man. The year was 1184, the Battle of Ichi-no-Tani. The Taira clan held a fortress along the coast. Behind it rose a sheer cliff so steep that only deer could descend it. Hyodorigo, the Hyodori Pass. With only 70 mounted warriors, Yoshitsune charged down the cliff on horseback. If a deer can run on 4 legs, so can a horse. So he is said to have whispered. This is the legendary Hyodorigo no Sakaotoshi. The reverse fall of Hyodori. The Taira army, struck from the impossible direction, collapsed in chaos. In the second month of 1185, the Battle of Yashima. With only 5 small ships, Yoshitsune crossed a storm-torn sea to the island of Shikoku. He struck the Taira headquarters by surprise, and drove them out into the inland sea. And on the 24th day of the 3rd month, of that same year, the Strait of Shimonoseki, the Battle of Dan-no-Ura, the final battle of the Genpei War. Taira no Noritsune, the fiercest warrior of the Taira clan, swore to take Yoshitsune down with him into death. He leapt onto Yoshitsune's ship, Naginata in hand. And in that moment Yoshitsune leapt from ship to ship, from ship to ship. He bounded across 8 ships in a single sequence and was gone. This was the Hasotobi, the 8-ship leap. It was a leap no human body could perform. The people of Japan whispered to one another, that leap it was the gift of the Tengu of Kurama. 1,000 years have passed. In present-day Kyoto, on the slopes of Mount Kurama, the path of the inner sanctuary still winds through the cedar forest, and along that path, the traces of Yoshitsune still remain. The exposed cedar roots that spread across the rocky path like the scales of a dragon, the Kinon, Mishi, the path of roots where the boy is said to have trained his legs. The valley of Sojo, where the secret art was bestowed, the mountain spring where he caught his breath, the Sekurabe, Ishi, the stone of heights, where on the day he left the mountain, the boy is said to have measured himself one last time, in farewell, and the Yoshitsune-do, the small shrine where, after his tragic death in the far north, his spirit was at last brought home to the mountain that raised him. All of these places are still there to this very day, in the deep night of Mount Kurama, in the depths of the cedar grove beneath the moonlight. Even now, perhaps, the great Tengu, with his red face and his black wings, stands silent upon the sacred stone, waiting for the next young warrior to find his way to the mountain. Kuchisake-Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. In the summer of 1979, a single rumor plunged all of Japan into terror. The year was 1979, June. Gifu Prefecture, in central Japan, a young schoolgirl walked alone down a quiet country path at sunset. Then, a tall woman appeared before her. Long black hair, a beige trench coat, a white surgical mask covering the lower half of her face. The woman blocked the girl's path and spoke in a soft, low voice. "Am I pretty?" the girl answered. "Yes, you are pretty." The woman smiled slowly. She raised one pale hand and pulled the mask down. What lay beneath was a mouth slit from ear to ear, a wide, impossible smile, glistening crimson. The woman asked again, "And now, am I still pretty?" The girl could not speak. She could only tremble, and in that moment, the woman drew from her coat a pair of long steel scissors to make the girl's mouth match her own. The rumor began in Gifu, and it spread like wildfire. Within weeks, the story had reached every corner of Japan: Aichi, Osaka, Tokyo, Hokkaido. It was the summer of 1979. Just before the school holidays, schools ordered children to walk home in groups. Police formed special patrols. Newspapers carried sightings. Day after day, a single rumor had moved an entire nation, and among the children, a whispered chant became their only defense. Pomade, pomade, pomade. The one word that was said to drive her away. But the woman with the slit mouth was not born in 1979. In the old chronicles of Japan, from the 1700s and 1800s, long before the modern age, similar tales were already written down. A man walking a moonlit street at night, a beautiful woman in flowing kimono calling softly to him from behind. When he turned to look, she lowered her folding fan and revealed a smile slit from ear to ear. For more than 200 years, across the centuries, she has changed her face, but never her hunger. The woman with the torn smile has always been here. The Showa era ended. Heisei came and went. Now we live in the Reiwa era. More than 40 years have passed since that summer of 1979, and yet, sightings of the slit-mouthed woman have never stopped. A small town in Japan, twilight. On a country road, a schoolgirl walking home alone. Just as before, a figure approaches from the opposite direction. Long black hair, a long pale coat, a white mask. The streetlights flicker on. The fox shrine watches in silence. The same path, the same hour. A different child. So, if you ever walk a quiet road, at the hour when the sun has nearly set, and a woman in a mask stops you to ask a single question, then your answer may decide whether you ever see another sunrise. Amabie, a creature that rose from the sea, a spirit said to drive away plague and to bring light to humankind. The year was 1846. Late spring, in the province of Higo, on the southwestern coast of Japan. Today, this place is called Kumamoto. For many nights, the offshore waters had been glowing. A pale, restless light, with no source anyone could explain. A government official took up his lantern and walked alone to the rocky shore there. Beneath the full moon, the sea began to part. A figure rose from the dark waves, long flowing hair, the beak of a bird, scales like a fish, 3 slender legs beneath the water. Its entire body shone with a silver light. A light that ran across the surface of the sea, all the way to the official's feet. This was Amabie. The official could not move. He could only kneel, slowly on the wet sand. The creature stepped closer. The moon a halo behind its head. It raised one slender hand and spoke. Its voice was soft, like the sound of waves at midnight. I am Amabie. I dwell beneath the sea. For the next 6 years, the harvests of this land will be rich, but a great plague will also come. When that time comes, draw my likeness, show it to the people, and they shall be saved. The waters rippled outward in perfect circles. The mist rose, and the creature slowly returned to the deep. The official did as he was told. He drew the creature's likeness and sent it to the city. In the streets of Edo, Kawaraban, the printed news sheets of the time carried Amabie's image to every corner of Japan. A merchant pressed coins into a vendor's hand. A mother clutched a single sheet to her chest. An old samurai studied the image in silent wonder. From Edo to Kyoto, from Kyoto to Osaka, from Osaka to the far north and the far south. Families pasted Amabie's image above their household altars. They placed it on sliding doors, on shrine walls, on the beams above their children's beds. A single image, drawn from a single night by the sea, had become a prayer carried across the entire nation. But time, as it always does, moved on. The Edo era ended. The Meiji era brought steam engines and gaslight. The Taisho era brought streetcars and modern buildings. The Showa era brought neon and skyscrapers. The Eisei era brought computers and the internet. Medicine advanced. Science explained what had once been mysterious, and the people of Japan, slowly, forgot how to pray to a creature from the sea. Amabie's image lay quiet in old wooden boxes, in forgotten archives, in the dust of 174 years. The world had moved on, but the image waited, patient, untouched. Then came the spring of 2020. A new plague swept across the world, an invisible disease, crossing every border, filling every hospital. Cities fell silent, streets emptied, masks covered every face, and in that silence, on the screens of millions of phones across Japan, an old image suddenly returned, the long hair, the beak, the 3 legs, the pale silver glow. Amabie was awake. People drew her in modern colors. They shaped her into sweets, into toys, into stickers, into prayers shared between strangers. Even the Japanese government printed her image, asking citizens to stay home and stay safe. After 174 years of silence, the creature from the sea had returned to save her people once again, and perhaps in the deepest hour of the next great darkness. When science alone is not enough, when power alone cannot save us, we will turn, once more, toward the sea, and wait for a pale silver light to rise from the waves. Oiwa, a wife, betrayed by her husband, her face stolen by poison, a woman who returned. From Hell, one of Japan's 3 great ghost stories. The year was 1825, Edo, Japan. The Bunsei era, the heart of the late Edo period. In the poor tenement quarters of Yotsuya, in the Cho district, a young woman lived a difficult life. Her name was Tamiya Iwa, pale skin, quiet intelligence, the daughter of a samurai family that had fallen on hard times. Her husband, a masterless samurai named Iman, had no income. Iwa held a newborn child in one arm and worked piecework with a needle in the other, late into the night. But she did not lose her pride. As the daughter of a samurai, she believed it was her duty to honor her husband and to protect her household, no matter how poor. What Iwa did not know was that her husband had already given his heart to another woman, the wealthy daughter of a neighboring family. Her name was Ume. Iman made his decision. Iwa had to disappear. But to draw a sword on a samurai's wife would bring punishment. so he chose another weapon, poison. This is medicine for your recovery from childbirth. With those words, he placed a folded paper of powder into Iwa's trusting hand. She believed her husband, and she drank. At first, only a faint numbness. But by the time dawn came, Iwa looked into the small bronze mirror at her bedside, and she saw her right eyelid had drooped, sagging heavy and closed. Dark welts had spread across her face from her temple to her jaw, and when she ran a comb through her once beautiful hair, the hair came away in her hands. Strand after strand falling in dark coils to the floor. She understood. Then, this was not medicine. This was poison. Given to her by the hand of her own husband. Iwa did not weep. She did not scream. She held the fallen hair in her hands and stared into the mirror in silence. What burned in her face was not despair. It was the slow, patient kindling of an eternal hatred. That same night, Iwa died. Iman was not finished. To silence a witness, he also murdered a household servant who had seen too much. He took both bodies and nailed them, with iron spikes, to a single wooden door panel, one body on each side. And in the dead of night, he threw the door into the dark waters of the Konda River. No one will know, he thought. Iwa is gone. But the river had other plans. The wooden door drifted downstream and washed up against the muddy bank beneath a moonlit bridge. The townspeople who found it recoiled in horror. On one side of the door, the half-decayed face of Iwa. On the reverse, the body of the servant, two souls nailed to a single board. The legend of Itageshi, the door that turns, was born that night. The story spread through Edo like a fever, but Ayamon felt nothing. Only days after Iwa's death, he held his wedding ceremony with his new bride, Yume. The night of the wedding, beneath the glow of crimson paper lanterns, the new bride sat beside Ayamon in her white wedding kimono, her face hidden beneath the traditional white tsunokoshi headdress. Ayamon raised his sake cup. He smiled. His new life had begun. Then he turned to look upon the face of his bride, and his entire body froze. Beneath the white headdress was not the face of Ume. The drooping eyelid, the dark welts, the patchy, falling hair. It was the face of Iwa. Ayamon screamed. He drew his katana. He swung the blade and severed the head of the bride beside him. But when the white cloth fell away and the head rolled across the wedding mat, he saw that the face was Ume's, his true bride. He had killed her with his own hands, trembling. He turned to his uncle, the matchmaker, seated across the room, but his uncle's face was also Iwa's. The blade fell again. And again, blood spread across the wedding hall. Iman was already lost, trapped, forever. Inside the curse of Oiwa, outside, the cherry blossom petals hung frozen in midair, as if time itself had stopped to watch a man drown in the hatred of the woman he had murdered. Nearly 200 years have passed since that night. But Oiwa's story has never faded, from kabuki theater, to bunraku puppet drama, to ukiyo-e woodblock prints, to modern Japanese horror films. Her tale is told, again and again. Today, in Tokyo, in the Yotsuya-Saman-cho district of Shinjuku Ward, there stands a small Shinto shrine, Oiwa Inari Tamiya Shrine, the very place where Iwa is said to have lived. And not far away, in the Nishi-Shugamo district of Toshima Ward, at a temple called Myojio-ji, Oiwa's grave still stands. 200 years old, still tended, to this day. When Yotsuya Kaiden is staged in a theater, when it is filmed for cinema, the actors, the directors, the entire production crew, they make the pilgrimage. They visit Oiwa's grave, they bow, and ask for her permission to tell her story once again, because those who fail to do so are visited by misfortune. Equipment falls without warning. Mysterious fires break out on set. Performers are injured under circumstances no one can explain. Such incidents have been reported again and again, across 2 centuries of Japanese theatrical history. 200 years have passed. The Edo period has ended. Tokyo has become a modern city of glass and steel, but the woman who lived in the shadows of Yotsuya, her hatred has not faded. So if you ever find yourself walking through the narrow lanes of Saman-cho on a quiet night, if you ever feel a cold gaze behind your back, it may be her. Watching still, the woman who, across 200 years, has never forgiven a single act of betrayal.
How did you find today's story? On this channel, we explore the legends and untold stories of Japan's ancient yokai. One by one, just as we did today, we hope you were able to feel the thoughts of those who came before us, hidden within these tales, and the subtle workings of the heart that lie behind Japan's culture and traditions. If you enjoyed today's story, please support us by subscribing, giving this video a like, and using the hype feature. It truly means a lot to us. Until next time, see you on our next journey.